You're watching This Week in Jacksonville with Kent Justice.
Thanks for being with us. New laws went into effect in Florida at the beginning of this month. And one of the key leaders in lawmaking in the state joining us right now, Paul Renner. Speaker Renner, welcome back. Definitely want to talk about some of these new laws, but really seems like first, so many people are dealing with the impact of property insurance, and it is a full-blown crisis here in the state of Florida. What's the message from you and the state's legislature about how homeowners specifically how are we supposed to get through this?
Well, it took years to get in the ditch, and it'll take a couple years to get out of it. But the good news is we've had a series of reforms, most recently days after the 2022 election. Just at the same time I became Speaker, we got together with the governor, called a special session, and really went a step beyond where we'd gone before to put an end to some of the wild west of litigation practices, some of the unscrupulous contractors who were driving up the cost and claims of insurance illegitimately, not because of a hurricane coming through, but basically just getting free roofs for people. And that had caused a lot of our insurers to go out of business and leave the state, billions and billions of dollars of losses. And so people looked at the state of Florida from the insurance market and said, stay away. What we've put into place now is starting to show for the first time not only down arrows but up arrows. Now there's still a lot of negative aspects because the reforms have not yet hit the consumer. We're still seeing price increases because we're still living under the old rules for the Hurricane Ian claims, Nicole, but even beyond that, those roof claims and so forth that are really creating some pressure on the back end of these reforms that we haven't got out from under yet, but we will get out from under it.
So someone who's in elected office as a state representative, of course, Speaker of the House in Florida. So you hear from constituents. Is it more personal than that? Do you know people who have said, my insurance? Last year, I went through that. My property insurance, my homeowner's insurance policy, non-renewed, and the company left. This week, one of my colleagues here at Channel 4, I just now am able to get new property insurance, but we were canceled. How close has it hit home for you, I guess?
Yeah, for sure. Neighbors, you know, and there's a lot of stories that are really painful to hear because of those increases. But what we also know is now, again, one of the first times in years, we have new insurers coming into the market. We have a record number of people that insurers that are trying to take out citizens policies. And for those that don't know, it's supposed to be a last resort. Yeah. If you can't get anywhere else, you go to this government-run citizens program. And we have a real big number of folks that are on citizens. We've got to depopulate that. And so we have insurers that are now taking out those policies and taking on that risk. What that means is that if there's a huge storm right now, if the millions of people on citizens, we would all pay that. And so with the private insurers taking those policies off of citizens, we reduce the exposure for taxpayers if we have a major storm.
So this is interesting. One of the first things you said was, hey, the legislation we've enacted, it'll take a little bit to, but you've reduced is it fraudulent activity, or how would you explain what's caused this crisis to happen?
It's that. It's really more the non-hurricane claims that were happening and people were getting away with it, something called AOB, assignment of benefits, where somebody knocks on your door and says, hey, I can get you a free roof, no money down, and here's a set of steak knives. And so people think
just
that
sign it over to me.
Yeah, sign your policy over to me, and then they take that and demand something well in excess of what fair market value is, as well as the person didn't need a roof replacement to begin with. You know, they found one loose shingle, and so then they go into litigation over that because the insurers say, look, this roof didn't need to be replaced. It's a 5-year-old roof. And so they go into litigation, and all of those costs at the end of the day and any of those claims get passed along to you and me. So those spikes in premiums are as a result of misbehavior by people that are not only contractors but lawyers who are making this a cottage industry. So we rein that in. We said, look, we want people with legitimate claims to be able to bring those against bad acting insurers. And so the other thing we did during the special session is robust accountability measures for insurers. Faster time to get into your house and look at what needs to be repaired, faster time to pay those claims. And if you don't do that, steeper penalties for insurers that don't treat their customers and address claims as fast as they take premiums. And so we've taken a dual approach of get rid of the wild west litigation, but also hold the insurers accountable to say, look, we fixed the situation. Now you make sure that you address your consumer in a way that we expect, which is quickly and honestly and fully pay those claims that need to be paid.
So farmers insurance pulling out of the Florida market. And I want to put up a graphic here. Speaker Renner, you said that the right policies are in place to help the state's insurance market pull out of this nosedive. Statement that you posted on social media, you mentioned legislation that we've just been talking about here by these special sessions last year. There was a bill passed and signed into law late last year, so $1 billion reinsurance fund backed by the taxpayers. And then that came on the heels of this $2 billion program you and other lawmakers set up during the special session in May 22. Are those the policies that you say, yep, this will fix this, or does there need to be more? Because now there certainly on the Democratic side, House or Senate, there's a call for, we need another special session. What do you think about that?
No, I don't think so. And I think you mentioned the subsidies. That's the last thing that a Republican legislature wants to do. That was really our recognition that we may not have insurance for people like everybody may be on Citizens, and we had to put that money up to try to keep people afloat. So that's the last thing that any of us want to do. And the good news is there hasn't been a lot of uptake on that because the market has been healing faster than we expected. So I expect we'll be able to pull that out. That piece out. It was really the reforms on AOB, which was a huge problem, and then also the litigation reforms to say, look, if you got a legitimate claim, we want you to bring it, you need to get paid, and if you don't, we're going to hammer your insurance company. But we're not going to let people play games with the system because ultimately all of us have to pay that. Yeah. Insurance is a pool of risk, and so if somebody gets rich and wins the lottery in Miami-Dade, we pay for it, and vice versa. And so we want to make sure that good claims move forward, but that we rein in some of the mischief that was taking place, and that has already started to show positive results.
For balance, you're a Republican, and the House is a Republican supermajority here. Nikki Fried is the Florida Democratic Party chair, former agriculture commissioner. She said this last week the Democratic leadership in the House and Senate have been proposing ideas and solutions which have gone completely unheard. So now we're in a situation here in the state of Florida where people can't afford to live here. If they are even able to find property insurance, the premiums are through the roof. You're seeing in some areas 40, 50, 60% increases in premiums. It's completely unacceptable. How would you respond to that?
Well, a couple things. We had multiple special sessions and regular session to address insurance issues. Most of those were bipartisan. Not all of them, but most of them were. So Democrats voted with us on a lot of this stuff. And secondly is, the solutions they have put forward don't work. One of which is cap what people can charge. Well, if you're losing billions of dollars and you come in and say, we're going to ask you or tell you, you can't charge more than you need to pay Kent and Paul's claims if there's a hurricane, people are just going to leave en masse. We would see a collapse in the insurance market. The other thing they proposed is a subsidy. Subsidize people's homeowners insurance. Well, now that's regressive because now you're asking a bunch of renters out there, people that don't own a home and have homeowners insurance, to subsidize what you and I pay for our home. That's very regressive on people that don't have the means to pay that. And so the taxpayer shouldn't be in the market of insurance. We should encourage the private sector to bear that risk. So if there is a hurricane, if there is a problem, somebody other than the taxpayers is paying for it. So it's in our best interest to make sure that the private market is healthy and that everybody has access to reasonable premiums. Those premiums, I'm confident, will start to level off and hopefully come down. But I think we're going to have to get through this hurricane season, and then next year, hopefully we'll see some positive news.
There's a lot of hope that yes, we get through this and those premiums come down. All right, so stay with us. Much more going on in the state of Florida. Speaker Renner is staying with us, and we'll be right back here on This Week in Jacksonville.
You're watching This Week in Jacksonville on Channel 4.
Florida's Speaker of the House is Paul Renner from Jacksonville, representing Palm Coast. Let's talk about session, because what happens sometimes in the winter, but certainly in the spring, and then the laws are passed, and usually they go into effect July 1st. So that's just happened. What are some of the things that have changed here in the state of Florida that we should know about?
Well, I mean, we have our universal choice bill, which really seeks to have customization in education so that you can get the very best in a way that if your child is homeschooled, you could go into a public school, for example, in a physics course, and really customize children's education. That's a major development. Some things that people may not know: data privacy, both for adults and juveniles. If you have an Alexa at home and you say, Alexa, raise the temperature, lower the temperature, in this case, in this heat, it's lower the temperature, please. But you want Alexa to stop listening once you give that command. And so we want to make sure that people's privacy, their data privacy, is preserved. And so we had a big home run on the data privacy front.
Maybe specifically, how does that happen? What are the pragmatics of how do you protect privacy there? Because it seems like Alexa's still listening.
Well, you know, we've made state law that to put guardrails around what these companies can do in terms of the information that they collect and then market and sell without your knowledge or consent. Now, if you want to consent to that, that's fine. But we want to make sure that people are consenting to that up front, and that this is not happening as it has been happening without our knowledge or consent. That's not okay, and we want to make sure that in Florida we've got plenty of data privacy.
Because often you say, hey, turn down the temperature on the thermostat, and then the next thing you know, you get an ad, hey, here's a great company to service your air conditioner.
Yeah,
right?
You're talking to your wife about a new king bed mattress, and all of a sudden you're just blown up with advertisements. Yeah.
I didn't mean to cut you off. What else should we be looking for?
Well, you know, Senator Pasadena was a champion on affordable housing, really for our workforce, our teachers, our cops
Really
and firefighters. Very important to change some of the regulatory climate to make sure that we can build more efficiently, more cheaply, and get that housing out there so we can try to lower the price of housing. That's a big issue with 1,000 people a day coming in. And we can't control supply and demand, but I think that will bear really good fruit over the next several years as we see more housing become available and therefore bring down that price a little bit. And many other things that we did, you know, on a funding standpoint, record funding for land conservation for the Florida Wildlife Corridor, setting aside part of old wild Florida, which will also help our environment in terms of our aquifer preservation, clean water. Nature does a great job of doing that for us. And the Florida, Moving Florida Forever, an extra $4 billion for road transportation. We've all sat in traffic and wanting to get home to our families or get to work on time. This will really allow us to expand that and make sure that we're relieving congestion over the coming years.
Yeah, I'm thinking I-4 right now, and the congestion that is always there between Tampa and Daytona or whatever. I do want to point this out. It sounds like you guys are proud of it, but Florida's back-to-school sales tax holiday, it starts soon. Matter of fact, it's going on right now. Runs through August 6th, and so that means we're not going to pay sales tax on certain clothes, shoes, school supplies, learning aids, computers, that kind of thing. And then most of the stores are going to be involved here. How do you feel about that? It's a little different, and it's going to be twice in a year now, right?
Right. Yeah, that's right. And it's very popular, and it's great. It's an opportunity to make sure that kids can go back to school and it doesn't break the bank in doing so. And I think if you want to characterize our tax package in any way, it's really about supporting families and families with children. So we have made a permanent tax exemption that didn't exist before for baby diapers, or baby wipes, or baby strollers, things that really cost a lot of money, as someone with young kids knows. And so this will be a big boon to families that are on a tight budget, that have a lot of kids that are trying to raise and do the best they can to give them a little bit of a break. The back-to-school holiday is another one of those. We also have hurricane preparedness. We have tool time for those that need that. And then we've taken Freedom Week into Freedom Summer for concert tickets and beach supplies and things like that that go to having a great summer.
Speaker Paul Renner, thank you. Appreciate the time here and giving us an update there. We'll be back in touch.
Thank you, Ken.
All right.